So I'm Daryl Lyon. I'm the inspector who runs the CIRV programme, the Community Initiative to Reduce Violence. And in this video I'm going to be talking about some of the impacts that the COVID situation had on policing and in CIRV specifically. So some of the things we've seen locally in Northamptonshire is around the beginning of when lockdown started. Some of the things we was able to see is that the kind of general population that masked some of the drug dealing and other illegal activity disappeared almost overnight. Some of the people therefore that you were able to spot through normal proactive policing, suddenly you had people you was able to spot the people that are drug dealing, you was able to spot the people that shouldn't be around, and you also have, of course, was able to speak to people that were out in the open or in groups, because we had a legitimate reason to go and speak to them and ask them what was going on in terms of why they were there, etc. Also at the start of lockdown, policing demand generally across Northamptonshire dropped to a degree, which meant that there was more time that the police had to go and be proactive in some of the areas that we'd wanted to be more proactive in for quite some time. So you had reduced police demand to begin with, and the kind of unlawful activity that was going on around drug dealing and weapon carrying was suddenly there was easier to spot. So that resulted in some higher stop search figures, certainly resulted in higher arrests in terms of for drug possession, drug trafficking, weapon possession, all of those kind of things, which then has driven a number of referrals into CIRV, because we'll visit anyone in custody any time who's been arrested for any weapons offence, drug dealing offence, and those type of gang or county lines related matters. So we've started to see a number of higher level referrals in, or people that have been arrested that we'll end up going to see in custody. What it has meant though for cases where schools, for example, are our second highest referrer across Northamptonshire, because schools are able to spot problems or issues or indicators with young people who may be linked to drugs or dealing, and once they spot the indicators that's going on, they then refer into CIRV. The difficulty, of course, with schools not being there is a lot of those behaviours haven't been picked up by anybody. So we're concerned now about what happens when schools go back, what things might be picked up on, and also what's been happening whilst some of the vulnerable people that would ordinarily be going to school and have a professional at least taking some degree of notice. That hasn't been going on for such a protracted period now that I think there's a large number of people that will have been affected by this, that would have ordinarily been referred into CIRV, but because they're not having contact with professionals, that hasn't happened. So whilst we're still getting high levels of referrals into CIRV, I do worry about the gap it's left, where professionals who would ordinarily have been professionally curious and asked questions in terms of why someone's got 3 or 4 phones and a new pair of trainers, those kind of basic things, those things I think would have started to have not been noticed because they're just not being picked up by professionals. So that's a real concern for us and something we've been struggling to manage. And also some of the interventions that we operate within CIRV are things that you'd attend in person. And with lockdown causing people to often then stay at home in environments often they're fleeing, because often, of course, while people going into gangs in the first place, often fleeing a problem at home, it's meant that there's been all those problems, of course, where people are having to stay inside, or the push towards getting involved in illicit activity is pushed them out where they're likely to be picked up by the police, because they're that much more visible and they're not blending in with regular members of the public. So we hope when we move forward and people are back at school, that those things will be picked up and we're able to go and get those referrals back in again, and we can start making a difference with those people. We're still here operating a full service, and we have been ever since lockdown has started. But we are noticing, of course, that we've not been getting those referrals from schools and other groups of where they'd be having contact with professionals regularly.